Welcome to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we build products in public. Each week we'll give you an honest peek into our lives as we share our struggles, our wins, and everything in between. I'm Benedikt and I'm feeling happy.
And I'm Benedicte. Today is June 26th. This is episode number 183 and I'm feeling frazzled.
Ooh.
But let's start with you. That's such a much better feeling. You're happy.
Yes, I'm happy. I got married last Friday.
Totally out of the blue for me, but maybe not totally out of the blue for you.
No, not totally out of the blue for me. I kind of knew it was coming. But it wasn't nothing big, like no fancy wedding, no nothing. Just the two of us getting married. No guests, no nobody, just a photographer and someone from the city council. So yeah, pretty small and relaxed, and we enjoyed it that way. But It's been a long time coming.
Still a major life update. But
I think I talked about this on the podcast in late 2020 or 2021, early 2021, that I got engaged, and it took us like 2.5 years to actually get married.
I feel like that happens a lot. Like I have friends who've been engaged for like years. I'm going to a wedding this summer, I guess in 2 weeks. I haven't been to a wedding in years, and they got engaged, but then suddenly had 2 kids. So it's like taken them 5 years, 6 years, something like that, to kind of get to the stage of getting a marriage, like getting a wedding up and going.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we didn't have kids, but there was a pandemic, so that didn't help. And then, we always assumed you want to have like a big wedding, like with people, and well, not a big wedding, but like at least have guests over and stuff like that. And then first we couldn't do it because COVID, obviously, and then once that was kind of ebbing down, it just felt so overwhelming to plan anything of that size that eventually we decided to, well, fuck it, let's just let's just do it without anyone there, and that's what we ended up doing, and I think this was the right choice.
Well, I'm really happy for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you looked very cute. I got a photo for those who's wondering.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see the actual photographers' photos. Because because we didn't have any guests and stuff like that, we had a lot of time to take photos.
So it was basically a photo shoot.
It was basically a photo shoot. Yes, that was what most of the day was about, and then we had a nice dinner in the evening. Went to our favorite vegetarian restaurant, and haven't been there in years, and it was so good. We should definitely go back there more often.
Yes. More fun and celebration in everyday life.
Yes.
Totally. It's just more of everyday life than anything else.
Absolutely. Why are you feeling frazzled?
I know. There's so many unclosed projects. I started too much, and now I need to like wrap them all up.
I see. Yeah. That's always my problem, or that used to be my problem, like saying yes to a lot of things and then feeling so overwhelmed, and then basically having to make sure I finish them all in time and in some order.
Yes.
And then I'm like, I'm never going to say yes to anything. And then once you get back to like a reasonable amount of projects, you start saying yes to stuff again.
Yes, that's all. Yes. Also, I just need to realize that life happens. But then again, like this semester or with half year, because I just saw your note that we were like half of the year is done, which is insane.
Yes.
But like I managed to have a concussion and like 2 bouts of like pretty, we had stomach bug, and then we had the some kind of flu. And then saying yes to all that traveling, which was a lot of fun. But it's all left me a little frazzled because everything has gotten pushed out a little bit more than I'd like to, even though I do like crunch time. It's just I'm just a little frazzled. But this happens, and I know I just need to make action on things, and then I feel much better again. So yeah, it is what it is. Like, you know, what the meditation people say. It's like, just, you're frazzled. You'll just have to like let that feeling be there and just do your things anyway.
Just accept it and then push through.
Just accept it. I kind of crashed this weekend, actually. I was going to do some work because Lillian was gone, and I kind of just crashed on the couch watching television series. But I think it was needed.
Sometimes that's what you need to do to be more productive the following
Because I woke up at 5 this morning and I was like, yes, like
let's do it.
Let's do it. And I've had a fun day, like not such a frazzled day. Like I'm going to do this project, and I did like a video script that's fully done, and then I can record tomorrow, and then tonight I'll do some of the admin stuff. And it's summer, and like energy is good in that way, so I think I'll manage to get through these things. But yes, no more concussions. That's all I say. I don't want any more concussions.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend those. Not a good idea.
No, because those kind of linger. Crunch time is harder when you can't like look at a screen for as long as you're used to without getting some sort of headache. But also on the fun side, we went to React Norway again this year, and I am so happy I paid my way in, because on top of everything that's happened, I would not have gotten a talk together. Like, that would just not have happened. But we met a lot of friends from last year and just kind of generally had like a chill out day, which was very nice. And I've gotten a car for the summer because of some, with my mother's health, I need to be able to go back and forth between countries. So I got a car, so we got to ride that down there. And now I'm just very scared I'm going to become dependent on this car because it's pretty nice.
Yeah, that happens.
That happens. So I'm going to try, just like, it's a summer luxury. It's like one of these like semi long-term rental deals. But back to business.
Then at least there's an end date on it, right?
Well, it can be extended indefinitely.
It can be, but it doesn't have to be, right? Like when you buy one, it's there.
And it's only got, like, it was a 50% off for the first 3 months for this specific model. So that is only for 3 months. And after that, like, it's double the price. So that kind of gives us a deadline.
Yeah, that helps a little bit.
That helps a little bit. So, but what's been up with business?
Yeah, kept it a little bit slow last week, to be honest, because I didn't want any major problems on Friday when we got married. So we didn't ship anything, but there's been work happening, and we made some progress. Specifically, we had one of those things happen a couple of weeks ago, and we were like, we should add more like validation error messages when people try to save messages and stuff like that. And you're like, sounds easy enough. Let's just like add it to the UI, and that's it. Yeah, it turns out adding it to the UI was the easy thing. But then actually surfacing the validation errors on the backend side of things was a little bit harder. So I spent almost a week refactoring how we render messages on the server side, so we can actually run those validations before we actually...
We're kind of just swallowing the error message and just saying like a general validation error, or what was happening to the messages?
That's like the stuff we're now added to be validated would not be executed until we actually send the message. So we previously were just checking, like, is the subject line there, is the message body there, and stuff like that. But we also added stuff like, are there embedded images in there? Is the liquid syntax correct, and stuff like that? And those errors wouldn't be surfaced until we actually render stuff. So we had to refactor how we actually render messages and have a way to do this, like during save, I guess, like when we save the broadcast or the campaign, And that turned out to be a bigger refactoring. Like it took quite a while. I feel like we have a good model now and a good implementation that's better than what you had before. But the biggest part of this was like just surfacing those errors and getting those errors as a API response. So that's there. It's not deployed yet, but I'm going to deploy it this week. As I said, like didn't want to roll this out last week for reasons. And then I also finally got back into that other refactoring I've been talking about with where we unify all our triggers into just one implementation and instead of like 10 or 20, I don't know how many it's these days. I made some significant progress on that. It's still not done, but the general ideas I had seem to be working out. And it's exciting because it removes a lot of code and a lot of complexity. And that's always my jam. And then one interesting thing I discovered, or like, I don't know, it's kind of obvious in hindsight, but what I did differently this time was the unified triggers. Sure, it's kind of a refactoring, but it's also kind of a new feature. And to make this possible, I had to refactor a lot of existing code and re-architect how we do certain things. And previously, I would basically create a branch, do my work, refactoring work there, add the new feature, then open a pull request, and then merge it into the main branch. But the problem with that is usually that the pull request gets insanely large because it's the refactoring plus the new feature. And while it's still just me reviewing code on the back end, like I'm reviewing my own code, it, especially as the project takes longer and over a couple of weeks, it's near impossible to follow what I was doing and what actually is a change that is a refactoring and what's a new feature. So what I did this time is started doing the work on a branch as usual, also pushed it and created a draft pull request. But then instead of merging the entire thing, I started new branches based off that branch and pulled out the refactorings and then just open pull requests for just the refactorings. And then it's super clear like what's going on. So we had pull requests that just changed existing implementations without adding new features and without changing behavior. And those were obviously a lot smaller and like just focused on one thing. And as you merge those refactoring branches, the original pull request with like the feature and the refactoring, like the diff gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And at some point, it's just that new feature. And it's so much nicer. Like it's so much easier to reason about. And now I can actually look at that feature branch and realize
it's a feature.
It's a feature. It's just that new functionality. And it's so much easier to review. It's less files changed and all of that. And it's one of, as I said, like obvious in hindsight, but I will be doing this a lot more in the future because it's so much better.
But you have to be pretty disciplined and you have to kind of know where you want to go.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that because those refactories can still happen incrementally, right? Like I know that the feature branch still isn't quite there where I want it to be. But I know that the changes I made, like, and the changes I already merged, the refactorings, those definitely made the code, like the existing code, better, even though they don't include the new feature. So I feel like I might be doing this a couple more times with that existing branch, just like adjusting to what I've learned. But merging the refactorings along the way.
Did you merge them both to the feature branch and to the main branch then? Or how did you do it, like specifically?
I basically did the refactorings on the feature branch and then created a new branch and cherry picked the feature, like the refactoring commits out of the feature branch and then merged that branch separately. Does it make sense? Basically, still working on the code like all together and like doing the refactorings and the feature in the same place, but then just pulling those refactoring commits out of it and merging them separately.
I think there is with semantic release, they have a description of like a similar thing where you have a longer living feature branch, and then you kind of do when you do updates, you merge that both to main and then to your feature branch. I think like they have a description of a way of doing that and still getting their like automatic release versioning.
Mm-hmm.
So
sounds
somebody wants to
similarish,
yeah, somebody wants to look up like a diagram or description of how one can think about these things.
Yeah.
But I've had some issues with like GitHub not updating. Are you using GitHub?
Yes.
I guess because you're cherry picking them from the feature branch. What was my issue? Like I did some rebasing or something, and like the diff didn't update. Where like the diff in the pull request didn't update. It was still like the original diff, even though things had changed.
Right. I think what I know. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No,
what I noticed was that if you just push changes to the main branch, the diff in the pull request doesn't necessarily update. So I think it only updates when you push to the pull request branch.
So it doesn't trigger any new jobs to like do a comparison then if you just do things on there. Because that was super annoying to me because I did a change to the main that I'd also done in my whatever branch. And then I realized like you, like, oh, this should just happen anyways. Like this should not be a part of this feature branch or fixed branch or whatever it was. And then I pushed it to main, and then the diff was still like all the changes, and I was like, "This is not helpful." Yeah,
I guess it updates eventually, but it either takes a while or it doesn't do it automatically.
It feels like an edge case with GitHub where they kind of like don't catch that or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Also, I guess they probably don't want to recompute the pull request diffs every single time a change happens on main. I don't know.
Probably something like that. They should have a little trigger though, like a little button that you could be like,
please, right? Yeah, that would be helpful.
please.
Please.
And then also, as you said, I also always review my own branches or my own pull requests, and I still have not gotten this from GitHub. I should tweet it again, but I want to be able to set myself as a reviewer and be like in a reviewer role, because there are things you're not allowed to do when you're reviewing your own code. Like if you are the person who created the pull request, you can't like write a review, like make a review of the pull request like another person would, which is super annoying because they assume another person, but I'm two different people. You're like, you're Benedikt the coder, and then I'm like Benedikt the reviewer, and if you at least give it 24 hours, those are completely different people who need a completely different feature set from GitHub. So I'm going to resurface that tweet because and people are like, but why? I'm like, because I want to get into the reviewer mindset and be able to just comment on lines and be like, hey, you should do this, you should fix this, so that I can actually see that those things get resolved when I resolve them. Like a split personality type thing.
Totally. Yeah, I usually don't comment on my own like pull requests, but I do this so often where I then just like push changes, then open up the div, and then go through it file by file on GitHub and just like look for stuff that feels off. And then I either try to fix it right away or at least like make a note somewhere to look into this. And it's so helpful because I don't know, while writing code, it looks different than while reviewing it.
Yeah, and it's also just because of that different interface, it gives you kind of a different mindset. Like, okay, now I'm in review mode. It kind of just triggers a different way of looking at the code, like you're saying. And for me, with multiple projects, like sometimes I can do a review on my own code and see that I need to make changes and I can't make them right away. And I want to be able to log them in a similar way as if you had done a review, or maybe I'm waiting for somebody else's review, but I'm seeing like, oh, I see this issue. Like, let me just document that right away instead of the other reviewer having to document it, right?
Yeah.
So I still think GitHub GitHub, listen to me. I need to be able to give myself a review.
Yes, totally.
Yes.
Yeah, that will be useful indeed.
Otherwise, I have to log in as like the other.
Yeah, correctly. Create 2 separate user accounts, right?
Yeah. Ray the reviewer, and then just Ray. Anywho, I don't need any more accounts anywhere. That's for sure.
True.
I do have a Ray dev and a Ray Cloudinary Ray, and maybe some other Ray. I don't know.
Okay,
but
it's already getting out of hand.
It's getting out of hand because some companies like they want you to have like a separate GitHub account that don't have access to other things. I mean, it makes sense. Like if you're going to get access, there's security policies. I don't fight those kinds of things. But on the topic of GitHub, I am planning to open or create an etc. GitHub organization because we have been getting some requests, not a request. A user has just made typings for us, like TypeScript typings for the script. And I'm like, yes. But then also we should probably have somewhere to host community initiatives and stuff like that. So I'm going to open an etc. GitHub organization and see if we can't get that repo started there. And then also see when I create, because I'm working on the Framer integration, that kind of the integrations we are making could be open source as well, because there are so many tools that we could integrate with. And I think more eyes on that could be interesting. And also people are willing to contribute. So that will be an exciting chapter to see if people are willing and how to manage that and all of that. Do you have anything like that for Userlist?
Yes, yeah. Basically, since day one, we created a GitHub organization very early on because like all our integration libraries are on there, and just
public?
a few. Yes, public.
Yeah.
Because the code is on Ruby gems and packages and npm anyways, like didn't make sense to keep them private. And also this way sometimes we get contributions, not a lot, but sometimes it happens. And it's just, I mean, why not? Why not keep it there? Then a few weeks ago, we actually migrated the Userlist private repositories to the organization as well, because they have been on my personal account for the longest time.
So the outsider code is on Bitbucket, but I'm not creating a public organization on Bitbucket for people to contribute to. So we are using version control, like, but we're just not on GitHub. So
yeah,
that
doesn't have to be GitHub, right? It can be other.
It doesn't have to be GitHub, but I think like at this point in time, GitHub is where you want to be if you do want people to contribute. It does make it easier, and especially for beginners, I think if what they learn often in the beginning is GitHub, and if you are looking at any tutorials on how to contribute to open source, then I will think all of the examples are from the GitHub user interface. So it just makes sense to be there because, for many, and it took me a while, and it takes beginners a while, I think, to kind of understand the difference between GitHub and Git. So
yeah.
In the beginning, let's just pretend there are none and let them use what they're, let them use.
Let's just pretend it's the same thing. Yes.
Let's just pretend it's the same thing. But now I'm using, so Atsera is on Git, Bitbucket, and then the bank is on GitLab, and then my life is on GitHub. So I'm using all of the clients.
Yeah. Is it all Git though?
It's all Git. Yeah.
Okay, that's at least something. Could be.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, some of the others.
Oh, it's been a while since I've seen SVN.
Yes, luckily it's been a while.
It's been a while. It's been a minute. No, but the weird thing is in GitLab, they call it merge request instead of pull request, which, and the way we're using it today makes more sense. But it just gets me so confused when people are talking about these MRs. I'm like, what MR? What are you like? What? Like I have to do that mental gymnastic every time to be like, oh, PR. Okay, PR. And also to then write MR instead of PR in communications with people and stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
I'm wondering if GitHub ever will change from pull request to merge request. Do you think so?
I don't
No.
know. I don't think so.
No.
Yeah. It's like a
Yeah.
brand name at this point, right? I mean, why would they change it?
I guess
coined
they're the
term.
ones who started. Yeah, they coined the term. That's true. That's true. Because I see every now and then people are like, why is it called a pull request? I want to merge something. And then
Yeah.
I'm like helpful in the comments. I'm like, it used to be that you said, pretty please, could you pull my changes? You know, godlike maintainer. Could you please do that? But these days it's more of a, could I please merge my changes into your repository?
Right. I still, like, now that I think about it, I still remember the days of GitHub without pull requests. Like when pull requests, it was basically at the beginning of my professional career. I remember like one of my job interviews, I sat there talking to it might be even that very day. I feel like I did, it was one of the longest interviews. I was there in Switzerland, in Zurich, and I was interviewing with them for 2 days.
Ooh.
And I feel like on that first day at night, I read the announcement of like the first pull request version, and I vaguely remember talking about it with one of the developers at the company I was interviewing with, about like, oh, how this changes everything and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while. I helped somebody at the bank job change things with Vim in the terminal the other day.
Ooh.
And I felt very powerful and old. But I was like, oh, you can just do, you know, I can barely get by with Vim. Like I can open, I can change, I can save.
And you can close it, right? So
I can close it. I only know one way to close it.
99.9% of all people out there.
Yes. But it came in handy, and I got to help somebody just in the exact same way a senior helped me do the exact same thing 15 years ago. Open a SSH config, change something, and save and close it again.
Yeah.
We even did sudo, which, you know.
Ooh, yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I have, you know, progressed or whatever. I have learned things the last 15 years.
Yes. And the fun thing is always like, people are like, oh, you know so much stuff, and how do you like learn this? And I'm like, that's just like the long list of things I stumbled across and failed to know. Because at some point I had to figure out all of this as well. So it's not like I magically gained the knowledge. It was usually hard earned.
Yes, and some things like that, it's not like you learned it in a course or anything either.
No.
Like when I wanted to learn React, like I found a course, I did some courses, and I was like, okay, now I understand React. And then I took with me all the knowledge from other, you know, other frameworks and other things into that. But when it comes to like opening a file in Vim, it's like somebody showed me once, and those are the 3 commands I know how to do. And I've never sat down to learn anything more, because you just have to, at some point, you have to just put up boundaries of where you're going to go down rabbit holes. And that's a rabbit hole I didn't want to go down. But my friend Monica of Affiliate, she still codes in Vim, which is a whole different level.
Yes.
And just makes me in awe.
Me too. Yeah. It's one of those rabbit holes I like repeatedly look at. Admittedly, these days not as much as previously, but that's a rabbit hole I'd love to be familiar with, but it never happened. Like I tried a couple of times, but in the end, I feel like moving the mouse pointer around is fast enough for most of my stuff.
I think it's a little bit like changing a keyboard. Like you can definitely get faster on a different keyboard, but do you have the time to be slow for a couple of months or however long it takes
I feel like my brain's
maybe-
not fast enough for typing faster. Like, I'm not entirely sure I gain anything from being able to change code faster, because usually most of the time is spent thinking about it anyways. Like, yeah, I don't know.
You could say the same thing with so I'm going to close out with this because we can end it. But I read in university, I read a study, this was in user interface interaction, that people who use keyboard shortcuts often feel like they spend less time doing something because they engage their whole brain compared to using the mouse. But when actually timed, they often don't use less time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I feel like that's a similar idea, yeah.
Yeah. But I think if you get fast enough, it's faster. But like, regular use cases, they found that it's not faster, it just feels faster because you're engaging more of your brain. So
yeah.
That is a pointless knowledge that I have in my brain that I got to share with everyone.
Actually quite interesting.
But why is it taking up space? No, I'm just kidding.
Could be worse. Could be Simpsons quotes or something like that.
I guess it could. I know no Simpson quotes. So,
me neither.
See you around.
No judgment. Like listener, no
judgment. No judgment. No judgment. I do know songs that nobody should know.
Cool. Well,
yes.
I guess then the last thing to say is, and dear listener, you might have noticed, we are kind of switching to a 2-week schedule by now. Like, there will not be an episode next week. So talk to you in 2 weeks, I guess.
And see you around the interwebs.